All right, we are back on the Acting Up with GTC podcast. I am your host, Micky Sharon, and I am joined this morning by my good friend Mark Trippinsee, the drummer and the grand poobah, I guess, as it were, of the of the Long Run Band from Colorado. Colorado's tribute to the Eagles. Mark, how you doing this morning, man?
I'm good. Not sure how your Cowboys made that one out last night late, but congratulations on that one. And,
Well,
and the
you
Broncos are
know,
looking money right now, and so yeah,
as I posted this morning, as the venerable Vinny Testaverde used to say, sometimes you have to win ugly, and
that's right.
you know, the Cowboys seem to be living by that adage these days. But
Yeah,
in the end, a win is a win is a win.
that's
So
right. That's right.
yeah, no matter how bad it looked, and the game went till well after midnight,
Yeah, I was
Texas
I was
time.
up. I was
Yeah,
up
so
watching. Yeah,
a little bad weather there in
yeah.
Pittsburgh. So,
And we're
but
just
you're
hoping we keep our old retro uniforms. We want to go back to the D on the helmet, and that's it. So,
the Dion helmet, and that's all, huh?
yeah, yeah.
Well, but the Broncos are looking pretty good.
Their defense is pretty insane. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, coming back, was that just last year that they lost to the Dolphins by 70 points?
70
Uh, so,
points. Yeah.
so,
Wasn't our
so
best day.
coming from that to looking where they're at now, I mean, that's pretty good. Sean Payton
Yeah,
is
yeah. We just had to get back to having a nice rookie quarterback, like the old days, and not having some old washed up guy. So yeah.
well.
Of course, I'm
Well,
old.
speaking of
We're older than all these guys, but
right,
but just
exactly.
had to
So I
get the
was going to
football
say
out of
that's
the way.
a good segue right there. Speaking of old washed up guys,
Yeah,
let's get
exactly,
started. Me
exactly.
and you, right? Okay. Well, the long run are coming in not this next weekend, but the weekend after next. That'll
Yeah,
be October 17th through the 19th, and you guys are coming in for a four-show stand Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We'll have two shows
yeah.
on Saturday, and we're really looking forward to that. And this is what you guys been coming out here since 2017,
Yes, maybe 16, 7 or 8 years,
maybe
something like that.
16. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I
it might
know
have been
this is
16. I can easily look back at my notes and tell. Yeah,
yeah, it's
but
been a
it
while.
seems it seems like it's been 10 years or more that we've been coming down. But
I know it
yeah,
does, but and you guys have definitely developed a faithful following of fans here. You've been coming
yeah,
out here long enough that we got lots of people that anticipate you guys every year being here, and so the ticket sales are already going really really well. Obviously,
yeah,
that we're approaching sold out on a couple of the shows. So we'll just go ahead and throw this out there early on in this discussion. If you want to come see, the Eagles tribute concert with the Long Run, you better get on the stick and get your tickets because they're not going to be around for long because these shows sell out every single year. So Mark, tell us a little bit about just the band itself. How long you guys have been? For those who may be new, over the last year, may have come to the Granbury Theater Company, Granbury Opera House, just in the last year since you guys have been here. Talk a little bit about the band and how long you guys have been playing together
yeah.
and your members.
Well, and I should say this product placement back here. That wasn't really uh,
That
predetermined.
wasn't
This is
just
how
for
my
this.
office is. That's just how the
Right.
office is here. But
Well,
um,
let me hold on. Let me see if I can do this without screwing things up. I can swing my camera around a little bit, and there I
yeah,
have one as well that you
yeah,
guys
and
so
mine's kind of like that. It's
graciously,
that wood plaque. That
yeah, you
old.
guys so
Yeah, yeah,
graciously gifted to me when y'all were here a few years ago, and it's been hanging right there. Not,
yeah.
I didn't put it up just for this, so you know.
Well,
Anyway,
the way it started was I was playing in an original band that we had been doing a ton of national act openers. We were opening up from everyone from Rat, Winger, Cinderella, even Stained, 3 Days Grace, a lot of even some newer bands. And we were playing in Sturgis in '07. And that was when the Eagles actually put out the Melbourne DVD. And so I happened to be at a Borders. You remember Borders Books when they actually had
Oh,
music stores and bookstores, And I saw
yeah, the
that the
good old
Eagles
days,
put out a
man.
new DVD, and I was like, I'm going to pick this thing up. And when I got it, I kind of got thrust back into those song arrangements, even though I had been doing some of those songs in a cover band prior to that with one of our old band members. And I just kind of got the bug again and started kind of learning some of the arrangements on guitar and whatnot. And I told some of my guys then, I said, it'd be cool to go out and do like a set where we do nothing but this stuff, like an hour long thing. And, you're just kind of spitballing because tribute bands weren't really a big, huge thing. Certainly not in this area. We had maybe about 5, 6 tributes, to our name. Of course, being Colorado, like, there's always like 3 or 4 Grateful Dead tributes and things like
Right.
that. But it actually wasn't some big grand plan. It just kind of grew from one little thing, and I had to go outside network and meet guys that I had never met before, guys that were much more experienced than I was, that had kind of that '70s soul to kind of do the material. Because I've always said, the guys that you've been playing with for 10, 20 years may not be the best guys for your next project or tribute.
Right.
So, meet new guys, meet, guys that'll kind of push you to be better. And that's what I did. And we started traveling by the fact that I had been playing a roadhouse up in Gillette, Wyoming, where we made some friends up there. And I called the owner, and he kind of sounded like Hank Hill, from King of the Hill, when I called him, he's like, well, yeah, y'all kind of seem to know what you're doing up here, so I guess we'll kind of try to book you. But I said, yeah, we'd like to get up there, and he goes, well, I don't really book my place no more, so you got to call this one girl. And so I did, and she became a good friend, good ally in the business with me. And I called her, and she was out of Nashville, and she goes, wait, you have an Eagles tribute in Colorado? And I go, yeah, why? She goes, do you guys suck? I said, well, I think we're okay. She goes, if you don't suck, I have some work for you because it's hard to get guys in from the coast and everything. And so that kind of got us thrown right into traveling to, Kansas, Nebraska, Utah, just county fairs, state fairs, things like that. And it just kind of happened on a lark, but it just so happened that the, band I picked happened to be the best-selling band of the 20th century. And so it wasn't like a thing that I had to hard sell people on, as long as, we were decent and, everybody knows the material. And so it wasn't any grand design. I just kind of fell into it. And so we just kind of happened to be the one big band that does this in the mountain time zone. And yeah, so that's essentially how it all kind of came to be.
You mentioned an interesting point there. With the Eagles and their music and their catalog, and at least with a certain age demographic, and that age demographic is probably a little broader with the Eagles than it is a
Yeah.
lot of, if you want to phrase it, classic rock tribute or classic rock bands. The Eagles seem to have expanded their age demographic a little bit beyond most classic rock bands. But really, when you think about the Eagles catalog, there really is, it cuts across musical genres.
Yeah.
So you can get people who really tend to lean more towards country music, but all the way to people who tend to lean towards the harder edged, rock and roll,
Yeah.
music, and everything in between. And I think that's a somewhat unique about
Yeah.
the Eagles catalog.
Yeah, I've often said this about songwriting, that be careful not to put yourself in a time bubble, in a timestamp. You can write a song that's like a Vietnam War rally cry or whatever it is you want, but if you're singing about current events, you might get yourself kind of caught in in a time bubble there, and you may not be relevant years later. And for that band particularly, that the material was that it just kind of went across. It didn't stamp itself in one little bit of time there, and it just was able to transcend decades later and still somewhat sound current. Kind of like, every time you go to a show and you have a sound man warming up a sound system, they're always playing Steely Dan CDs. Why? Because
Right.
those CDs sound so damn good. All these years later, there's so much separation, and so they don't sound dated. They don't sound, caught in time somehow. And
Exactly.
so that may be a bad, comparison, but that's just kind of how I look at it.
No, I think that's really really accurate, and I think that's one of the reasons why, speaking here about our area here in Granbury, Hood County, North Texas, um, why this music resonates so so much with
Yeah.
people is, again, because it is kind of timeless. It's not dated. I mean, I have no doubt that there will be people listening to this music years after you and I, are gone. I
Yeah.
think this music will still stand the test of time because it is kind of, it's timeless, and
Yeah.
it sounds a little cliche-ish to say, but it really is kind of timeless. It
Oh, it
defies,
is. Yeah, they'll be listening to it 100 years from now.
yeah, most
I mean,
definitely.
same with the Beatles. Same with things like that. And so just some things like that just live on, forever.
What we're saying is that the heirs and beneficiaries of the estates of Glenn Fry, Don Henley, and company are probably in good shape.
I think they'll probably be taken care of for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I'm not sure. What's weird is the Eagles also don't really sound too much like their predecessors either, because it's hard to tell kind of where all their influences came from. And one could say the Beatles, like some of the guys who were into the Beatles, and a couple of the guys in the band would kill me for saying this, but I'm really not one of the guys that thinks that everything started and stopped with the Beatles, because for me, there was influential stuff on rock and roll that came before that, which is the blues and R&B. And so for me, the beginnings of rock and roll started with Little Richard, Otis Redding, and
right,
Chuck Berry, guys like that. Those are the guys that started rock and roll, not the Beatles.
right.
And so that's just my personal opinion. But when you look at all the great singers out there of rock and roll, whether it be Lou Gramm and Paul Rogers and guys like that, those guys were influenced by Sam Cooke, not Paul McCartney per se.
Right.
And so, which like we often call Sam Cooke maybe the greatest R&B rock and roll singer ever, because he started everything. If not for Sam Cooke, there's no Steve Perry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's kind of, to me, what started rock and roll. And it's hard to say where the Beatles got all that stuff from, but I'm sorry, the Eagles. Comparative sales, right? Beatles and the
Right.
Eagles. But I mean, the Eagles did draw from the Beatles and everybody prior to that. And
Well, you look at what those guys, what their roots were. Don Henley being from East Texas, so he was.
yeah,
There. So we're all a product of our upbringing, our environment, a product of the time. I mean, so Don Henley had some influences from country music, but as you said, R&B and blues were kind of an underground sound at that time. You got
yeah,
Glenn Fry being from the Detroit area, and so there were some blues and R&B and even Motown influences that he brought
oh
to
yeah,
the table.
yeah,
So all of these guys that ended up being what became the Eagles in the early '70s, and even before that, as part of Linda Ronstadt's touring band
yeah,
and everything, they brought all of these musical influences that they each had, brought those together. But you know what? At the end of the day, they developed a sound that was uniquely their own.
Yeah,
and which,
yeah.
we had to put a label on it, so we called it, the California sound,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Or, sometimes they called it the Avocado Mafia down there. All those
right,
bands down there that
yeah,
started, and
yeah,
including some guys that we know,
right,
from up around this area, um, and lest we kind of downplay what Kenny Rogers actually had to do with this band early on when Henley was still in Shiloh and playing in that band, and he had convinced Kenny Rogers to come out and see their band somewhere, and which he never did, but he never did that as a habit, go see other bands, but he went and saw them, took them in as prodigies, and actually had them, I think, sleeping on the floor in his house at one point, and doing some producing for him, and then that kind of thrust those guys into getting into those other projects, and then Fry had the duo with JD Souther in Southern California, and
right,
which rest in peace, JD. And so that kind of started that whole landslide of things.
right, right.
And yeah, long
Well,
before I was around.
yeah, but great stories though. With how all of that, all of those dots got connected and those guys came together.
Yeah,
We may never see a time like how all of that, a music scene just kind of developed and evolved there in the late '60s, and then really developed on into the '70s, and ended up being all of those '70s supergroups,
yeah,
along with the Eagles. But
yeah.
so when you guys started coming to Granbury, the popularity of your band was almost immediate, and the thing that I hear most often is, it's just like when I listen to these guys, it's just like I'm listening to an Eagles record, or I'm listening to the actual Eagles playing in concert. That just the note for note perfection that you guys bring to the music. Is that something that you guys, obviously you're an Eagles tribute band, so yeah, you obviously try to nail it as close as possible, but you guys you're kind of, you would, by listening to you sound like you are almost fanatical about matching that sound, because it is so good. Talk about that just a few minutes.
Well, here's where we're fortunate as a band, because we can say tribute to the Eagles, but really we're fortunate in the aspect that the Eagles on stage really just look like a bunch of out of work truck drivers. They don't really look like anything, um, you know, very
They didn't look like
definitive.
rock and roll stars.
No, no, not at all. And so they could walk around the street pretty much unnoticed. But we didn't have to do anything where we're looking like somebody. Like, I mean, our friends in El Loco Fandango, the ZZ Top guys that are coming down. Shameless plug,
Yeah,
mind you. Um,
yeah,
those guys, I mean, not only do they look it and they have an organic thing, but you really kind of have to stick to that look, even if you are musically accurate, which they are, or guys in like a Kiss tribute band. Obviously, unless you're going to do the Kiss without makeup version, you're kind of stuck into wearing the boots and all that gear. No matter how hot it is outside.
right,
And with us, it really doesn't matter the look or whatnot, but it just really matters whether we can sing the stuff or not. And so you have to
right,
mainly have 4 or 5 guys together that talk. I always call it talk harmony. If you can talk harmony and everybody knows kind of where they're supposed to be, and you don't have to over explain it. Guys just know, how to do that stuff. And so for us, that was what was fortunate about being in this band, is that you really have to focus more on the music and not about the big look. And as far as Granbury goes, I mean, I've always said that, you finding us or us finding you down there was like searching for a needle in the haystack and finding the farmer's daughter. So it was just a very lucky, fortunate find that we were able to build a family down in Texas. And we've gotten some calls from other parts of
yeah.
Texas, but it's a big state to travel in, as you well know.
Oh,
So
most definitely.
right.
We can share you a little bit, but you definitely have found a home east of the Rockies
Right.
here in Granbury, Texas, and everybody loves you here. It's an annual event that we look forward to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're here at New Year's Eve. Sometimes you're here like this year. You're coming here in October,
Yeah.
and we'll go ahead and throw this out as a little plug. We haven't officially announced our tribute concert season for next year, but we'll give this just as a little taste that we've got you guys coming out twice in
Yeah.
2025, and
We're hoping.
once in the spring. That we've got. We're not going to say too much about it right now, but we got a little special something lined up for you with these guys coming
Yeah.
in the spring, and then you guys will be back out here next New Year's Eve. So we're talking about
Yeah.
New Year's Eve of
Yeah.
2025. So if you listen to this and you hear New Year's Eve long run, don't rush to our ticket site and look for a New Year's Eve show this year. So we're talking New
Yeah.
Year's Eve 2025 that
Uh,
these guys will be back out here. But we're really looking forward to you guys coming out here in just a couple of weeks, and we'll be rolling out the red carpet for you, man.
Yeah, yeah, we're looking forward to it. And it's funny when we fly into Love Field and I rent the car, I always make sure to rent a big truck, because, hey, I am in Texas, so I got to rent a truck to come down there.
That's
And,
right. That's right.
yeah, and
And
usually I get
and
one that kind of matches
you
mine,
always.
And yeah, yeah, I was able to get the same Toyota Tundra well, kind of the same, but I was able to get that one. I always make sure it has like Texas plates if I can, you know. That way I don't
Right.
get vandalized or
Well, and
anything.
well, you always have to have a way to get to Stephenville to partake in the Heart Eight barbecue
That's
from
already planned for
Stephenville,
Friday,
Texas.
daytime about noontime. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that we always kind of have to block that time out.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Mark, man, listen, I appreciate you setting aside a few minutes to be with me this morning on the podcast. And
Yeah.
again, the long run, Colorado's tribute to the music of the Eagles, coming up October 17th through the 19th. And so if you haven't gotten your tickets, be sure go online to granburytheatercompany.org or call the Opera House box office at 817-579-0952 and get your tickets while you can still get them, because they're not going to last long. Mark, appreciate it, man. Take care. Have a great
Appreciate
day,
it.
and we will see you here in about 2 weeks.
Okay, looking forward to it. We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks,
All
buddy.
right. Bye bye.